Welcome to the social-engineer.org podcast, the Security Awareness Series, episode 144. I am Chris Hadnaghi, founder and CEO of Social Engineer and the Innocent Lives Foundation, and I've been your host since I was a wee lad way back in 2009. Okay, I know it's a lie, but 2009, we've been doing this, Ryan.
Yeah.
And I'm here with my buddy, Ryan MacDougall, who has an actual Scottish name, so he should have used the word we. Nice to have you here, Ryan.
Thanks, Chris. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Social Engineer LLC, and I'm basically just in charge of running things for all of our client initiatives and making sure all of our pen tests go as planned. I've been in the technology field for 23 years, with the last 8 being focused on penetration testing and security awareness.
I like it. I'm just in charge of making the company run. That's it. That's all you do. It's a light
it's a small job.
It's a light job. It's not really that important. Now, this episode is sponsored by Social Engineer LLC. We, as our company that Ryan and I both work for, we're an information security consulting and training company founded even way before this podcast back in 2003. We specialize in the art and science of social engineering. And therefore, we try to focus on how humans make decisions. We try to understand those decisions so we can perform what we call adversarial simulation. With that in mind, our goal is always to educate the end user so that way we can help protect your organization using services like phishing as a service, vishing as a service, social engineering risk assessments, and more. Check out social-engineer.com for all that info. A couple other quick announcements before we get to the exciting guests we have today. A lot of people have been asking, so we're just putting it at the beginning of every podcast now. You know, we have a Slack channel. We started a public social engineering Slack channel. We have discussion rooms for, of course, general social engineering, phishing, vishing, updates about news on social engineering, as well as career opportunities. We've had 5 people locate new jobs through our Slack channel. So check the show notes for the link to that. The invite's open to the public. The one rule, don't be a jerk. That's it. Just come on in and have a good time, and you can promote anything you want. Just don't be a jerk, and you'll be fine.
Pretty much a standard rule for everything we do.
It's a standard rule for everything we do, you know, but it should be just a rule in life, I think.
Yeah.
Also, big shout out to Clutch, our favorite band on the planet Earth, for letting us use their songs as our intro and outro music. Check them out at pro-rock.com. If you don't know who they are, shame on you. Go check it out now. Yep. And along with that, if you are checking out Clutch on Spotify, you'll notice there's a little donate button there. That little button goes to an organization called the Innocent Lives Foundation, which Neil, the lead singer of Clutch, happens to be a board member. It's a foundation. I started a nonprofit 4 years ago to help unmask anonymous online child predators, working with law enforcement to bring them to justice. You can check that out at innocentlivesfoundation.org. Okay, now let's get to the good stuff. This month, our guest is Ashley Rose. Ashley is the CEO of Living Security, and you're going to love when we talk about them, what they do. And I'm a personal fan to the point that our company uses them for internal training and fun. You'll find out what that means. Mm-hmm. Ashley holds a bachelor's of business administration and is a serial entrepreneur. We're going to find out all about that too. Her experiences in marketing and managing product lines. Well, actually, she has to imagine them first, and then she gets to manage what she imagines. There, let's do that as a tongue twister. After launching her career in the tech industry, she got involved in information security. And now as the CEO of Living Security, she's able to combine her passion with her interests for entrepreneurship and helping people. Ashley, it is awesome to have you on the show today.
Chris, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here. And I'm surprised I did not get a personal invite to that Slack channel. So I am definitely going to be joining after our time today. I'm excited.
Oh, you heard it here first, folks. I have failed. Yes. I have failed. I'm going to add that to our notes to invite all of our guests to the Slack channel. I'm sorry, Ashley. That's terrible. So just as a little side story, I met you guys, 3 years ago, I think, because you sponsored our conference, the Human Hacking Conference, and came in and did this amazing escape room that was all about information security, which I was really, really cautious about at first. I was like, really, is this going to work? And it was our hottest thing at the whole conference. Everybody was lining up for it. And then we stayed in contact ever since then. I'm curious, how did you find that path? How was that the path you decided to take?
Yeah, that's such a stacked question. So
I know.
I think that, so I mean, I like really will break this into kind of two parts, right? So how did I come on this path? And then maybe like how did the journey of living security even kind of start with escape rooms? Because really kind of two separate stories to tell, but I'll try to make it as concise as possible. So, yeah, I mean, you read in my background. I did not from the cybersecurity space originally. I actually got my degree in marketing. Went to University of Michigan. I grew up in Michigan. Spent time all over the country. But I always knew that I loved business. I loved marketing. I loved everything about that. I loved like the creativity, the art and the science, kind of what you guys do here at Social Engineering. But combining those things, what I didn't know until right after college was how much I loved entrepreneurship. And like many entrepreneurs, my first experience with it was actually just a problem that I myself had. So I'm, pretty vocal. I'm the mom of 3 girls, love my kids, love my family. But I had my first daughter and I was living near the beach at the time. And at that point, when kids are little, they get all sandy and wet and you have to change their diapers at the beach. And it was just kind of a nightmare for me. And I remember thinking, why do bathing suits for baby girls not have snaps in them like onesies do, right? Just like, you keep your kid in onesie. It's an easy thing to do to change their diapers. So I decided just to start a company. And Bella Bearer was my first company. It was snap change swimwear for baby girls. I did actually design the swimmer line. I taught myself how to sew. I made our first prototype.
I don't know this story.
Yeah.
I know. Went to Kickstarter and raised, at that point, the highest grossing children's line on Kickstarter at the time. Got a manufacturer stood up in California and then brought my first swimmer line to market. So Bella Bearer was my first experience with entrepreneurship. Did it for a couple of years. I always like to say I did a lot of things right, did a lot of things wrong. I learned a ton. But coming out of that, I always knew that one day I was going to start another company. And I just didn't know what it was going to be. And so I followed my career path from there in marketing and sales. Moved around the country. I'll talk a little bit about Drew's story, but Drew was in the Army, so that moved us around a lot in the U.S., anywhere from Arizona and D.C. And then we ended up here in Austin, Texas, which is where we are now. And I got my first job offer in technology, and I started working with a software team for an in-house product. At that point, there was another product manager that owned the product. And when they left, I said, hey, I love everything about this. I love everything about product management. I love that you can apply technology to problems to scale. Let me come here and kind of manage this product. And so I had my first opportunity in product management at that point, and quickly realized that and I always knew I had this kind of analytical, engineering driven mind, but I was in marketing. And so I really loved the data aspect and all of these other things, but really fell in love with software at that point in tech. And it was also a really, awesome experience for me, because at that same time, Drew was building the cybersecurity program at the organization that I was working on, the product teams. And he started building his first escape rooms and started building, fun and engagement into cybersecurity and security awareness. And so this is really where our paths cross and where my intersection into cyber happens, where it was really easy to see through this process and through kind of experiencing what he was building, that when it comes to the human aspect of cybersecurity, like, this is not an IT problem, right? This is a people problem. And we've been applying a lot of the same methodologies, right? Trying to change behavior in areas like MarTech and ad tech, right? When I'm in marketing, I'm thinking, how do I move somebody down a funnel? How do I help to encourage them to make a decision and ultimately convert, right? Or change their behavior or buying behavior. And in, the learning sciences with ed tech, right? We're talking about, how do we help to increase knowledge and retention? How do we leverage positive reinforcement to overcome the forgetting curve? And so this was a unique experience where I thought, if we could just apply these different types of sciences, these different types of methodologies to cybersecurity, we could make a real impact. And it was working through the escape rooms and through some of the learning experiences that Drew was creating. And so we decided to start a company together, him bringing the subject matter expertise in cyber, me bringing the marketing, the technology, and the business side of things. And of course, like any good marketer, my first course of action was going to do market research. So I got on the floor of Black Hat. I think it was 2017. It was my first time ever at a security conference. And I had a little iPad and I was navigating the floor. It was completely overwhelming. I could not believe how many vendors were out there. They all looked very similar, but that's another story.
Yes.
And I just was asking security leaders, hey, what's missing with your, security awareness program? Where are the gaps? Where do you, why aren't people responding? And then moving into, if you had a solution that was engaging, that was relevant and was fun, is this something that you would purchase, right? Is it something that you would want to buy and bring in-house? And I had a resounding yes. And so that was enough for us to decide, hey, there's a market opportunity here. Let's build something and see what we can do. So that was my introduction into cyber, was Black Hat on the floor, interviewing CISOs with an iPad.
That is crazy, from bathing suits to escape rooms. That's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ryan, I kept interrupting you.
No, you're doing great.
So I thought you had something. Sorry. So when you and Drew decided to now leave that and kind of launch your own business based on your research that you did at Black Hat, what was your first concept for an escape room that involved InfoSec? How did that come about? Because I'm sure from 2017 to today, there has been massive improvements. I mean, the ones that we did with your company were amazing.
Yeah. I mean, we've come a long way through a lot of our different product lines. So at first, we looked at kind of the general security hygiene topics that we needed to be training on, right? And, phishing and social engineering, of course, password hygiene, all the standard things that we're trying to, continue to drive into the minds of our employees every day, the things that are causing breaches. And so we looked at ways and opportunities to incorporate that into a hands-on activity. And so, I mean, you can, even in escape rooms in the city, you have things like, lock picking and, these types of activities. For instance, phishing, we would do a lot of like paper-based stuff at first where, we had actually like created phishing emails and you had to go and identify which one was the phish. And then there was a secret code in the phishing email that you got to take on to another puzzle. And so it followed a similar sequence like you would do in like an escape room in the city for, a fun activity or event. And when we first started, it was very manual. It was a lot of paper-based. We were creating things after each. Oh, actually, this is a great story. And I forgot about this for a moment. So we had these scratch-offs. So we made these cards, and with each of the cards, it was, the hint and the clue, and you had to fill it out and pick the right number to open up another clue to go to the next part in the escape room. And so we had these postcards printed, and each one went with one of the escape rooms or the storyline. And then we ordered all of the like scratch off stickers. So you can order these separately, like you would do for a lottery or, lotto ticket.
Yeah.
And I remember Drew and I had to sit there before an event, before a conference, because each one of these, so imagine, we had like 10 questions, each question had 4 answers, and you had to multiply that by how many rooms you were going to run that day. And we were running these things, like 30 minutes or every hour. So an 8-hour event could have 16 escape rooms if you went, full at it. And so we were sitting there peeling off these scratch off stickers, sticking them on every single little line before these conferences. And I was like, all right, we got to outsource this. So our first employee was like my mother-in-law, her sticking scratch off stickers onto the postcards. But I mean, it truly was kind of do what doesn't scale. Yeah. And you hear this a lot kind of in early startup, that we needed to get something out there. We need to get something to market as soon as possible to be able to test and then iterate. And so went from paper-based postcard with, stickers to, eventually we built a software application that managed the experience. And then we built actual props that took the replacement of a lot of the paper-based material. And so eventually we got to a point where we could actually license out the rooms to our clients. They could use the app, they could have a team go through an escape room, and then in 5 minutes, you could reset up the entire experience and you could run your next group through. Yeah. And so we did a lot of packaging work. We actually made these portable. So, fast forward a couple of years, pre-pandemic, obviously, our clients were traveling internationally. They were going to different offices and they were setting the escape rooms up at conferences all over the world.
Wow.
And it was really incredible. And, I think, we can keep chatting here, but really that cemented the idea that we needed to create a scalable software SaaS platform that could manage this at scale for the enterprise, because we were always restricted to the number of people that we could actually reach with our solution, because it was in person and, it required a manual host and all of that.
Yeah. So now if we jump to, pandemic times, because everything you just described, I mean, that's what you brought to HHC year one. But now you have a situation where people aren't getting together. We're not going to be in a room with 8 people or whatever. How did you change all of a sudden to manage being in a global pandemic where we're not in person anymore?
Yeah, so I'll actually start at the end of 2018 and then kind of go to the pandemic. So we actually launched our digital training platform, our SaaS platform, at the end of 2018. And for us, we knew that both were kind of going to grow simultaneously, but we were working with the enterprise and they needed to reach, 20, 30, 40,000 users. And even with the escape rooms, you weren't going to ever be able to do that. So we launched that platform at the end of 2018. I was very new. It was kind of MVP state, of course. And then through 2019, we grew with both our SaaS platform and our escape rooms. So both product lines actually saw significant growth through 2019. And then in 2020, we had planned to do, the same thing. We actually went out, we raised our Series A round of funding, and we closed the day after the stock market crash. We actually started pre-pandemic. But our whole goal was continue to scale with our SaaS platform, continue to grow with our escape rooms. And what we were finding was that customers who got onto the escape room because it was highly differentiated, it helped serve as a use case, it was, culture building, it helped you get out in front of your team and start building that relationship. Once they saw the effects and the value, they were very likely to actually cross over to our digital platform so that they could scale much wider. And so that was a successful kind of land and expand strategy for Living Security. And so we had that core platform in existence when the pandemic hit. So of course, that was helpful because we were able to still service our customers. The ones that had not converted yet to our digital platform, these were the ones that we were concerned with clearly through the pandemic, right? How are you going to reach your end users? How are you going to continue to engage with them? And especially in a world now where the distributed workforce and people are at home, people are, their barriers are broken down. They're much more likely to fall victim to attack. We're seeing ransomware on the rise. And then, of course, the adversaries using things like COVID and vaccinations to be able to really hit people from an emotional standpoint to trick them into obviously falling victim for the attack. So our customers responded, recognizing also that they needed to make sure that they were out in front and they were helping to present, educate and provide information and tactics to really respond to the changing threat landscape. And so I remember I woke up in the middle of the night one night and I was like, we have to bring our escape room online. And we had to get team-based training online. And that same morning, and I'm like, and I'll do this. I wake up in the middle of the night with whatever, I'll think of something and I'll type it up. And I woke up and Drew woke up the next morning and he was like, we have to bring our escape room online. I'm like, all right, we have to bring our escape room online. We both said it kind of simultaneously. And so that same day, we were on the phone with customers, actually pitching what a digital version of the room would look like to see if there was interest, right? Kind of back to early startup days where we did the market research. And then I think within 24 to 48 hours, we had designed what an online escape room, or what we now call teams, would look like, and how we would be able to bring it to market within like 4 to 6 weeks. So it was pretty incredible. We were able to really pivot the team's focus to, letting them know, hey, we have clients out there that can't use our services, can't use our solution. They need to reach out to their team members. I'll talk about culture here in a minute, because I had a lot of learnings through this, but the whole team really pivoted to focus. We had this new mission in front of us. And I mean, we just crushed it I think it took us 4 to 6 weeks to bring the initial version to market. And then we had a whole rollout plan where we could then transition all of our customers, or as many as we could get, onto the digital version of our team's product. So, I mean, looking back now, some stats, we were able to transition about 85% of our in-person training customers over to digital. We had, 120% net revenue retention through 2020. So even the lost revenue from some of the escape room customers, right, the industries that were hit hard, or we just didn't reach them in time. So we were able to grow so many accounts through the pandemic, and, they found a lot of value in our digital offering, both with the Teams training and then the platform. So we were able to grow, and we had significant growth, both from, the growth of our current accounts and the new logos, obviously last year. But I think, for us, so for the customers, the innovation and the adaptability and the being able to respond very quickly was extremely meaningful. And the relationships that we built through the pandemic and the response have been really key for us, and will continue to be as we grow. But then, looking back, the culture that we built at Living Security, and being aligned to a mission and to a similar goal, helped us to accomplish this very quickly. And so I've continued to be very intentional about really talking about our mission and talking about our why, and making sure that people feel connected to that, even as they've come on board through the pandemic. And we've almost tripled our company through 2020 in terms of headcount as well.
Wow.
So can you talk a little bit about the 15% of those clients that you weren't able to convert to your digital? What were the obstacles that you were running into that you couldn't get them to make that transition?
Yeah, I mean, so time, right? Time was a big one for us. And we were responding, we had a small team. And so maybe some of them we weren't able to reach and get out in front of quickly enough, right? Other ones, we had people for instance, in the, fitness industry, where everything just shut down, and they were so much more concerned. How do I get back to operating status, right? We're laying people off and doing all this stuff. So it was a little bit of a mix, but those were really the two reasons. What's really exciting is, and our customer team has done a fantastic job, that whenever we weren't able to transition somebody during the pandemic, they said, listen, we want to continue to work with you. You're a great partner. We're going to be back. There's going to be something here. And so our customer team really cemented those relationships. And this year, those customers that we weren't able to get to or weren't able to service are actually coming back on with us now on our digital offerings. So I'm excited to be able to look back this year and really look at what the net loss was, because I think it'll be very minimal. Because we've always just been customer support, and that customer relationship has been a really big value proposition and a value driver for our customer base.
Yeah, having done actually the online version of that in our own company, which was really, really fun. I'm still interested in how are you getting the decision makers in your potential clients? How are you getting their attention, aside from it being fun? How are you getting their attention to be able to invest in that type of security awareness outside of their normal computer-based training that is pretty ubiquitous throughout the industry?
Yeah, Ryan, that's a great question. So, it's a couple things, but first, to start, I think that most people are in the industry, right, our practitioners, our security awareness program owners, they came into the position that they're in because they ultimately have a belief that people can be an effective part of your security program, right? That you can leverage people as an opportunity to really secure your front lines. Otherwise, it'd be a really hard job to just, be pushing out compliance training every day. And so these are our people, right? They believe in our mindset. They believe in, what we're doing. We really take like a comparative approach to kind of legacy security awareness training built by IT for IT, where people were viewed as your weakest link. We say, no, like people can be your greatest asset. And there's an opportunity if you invest and you focus on your employees, that they can be like a very effective part of your strategy. And so that message, we've really pushed that out to the space and it resonates. And we talked to our sales team, and we found this a lot this year, is that we do a fantastic job of really qualifying people. First of all, even before we get them on the phones, but then when we get them on the phone, we're very set in the fact that like, this is what we believe. Here's what our program can help you do. Here's what we can offer. Do you believe this? Great. Like, let's keep talking. If not, and you're okay with the status quo, then it's not going to be the right fit for living security. And so we're selling change, right? We're selling like moving away from status quo where it's not good enough. Like sending out annual compliance training for 45 minutes once a year to people and calling yourself checkbox secure, like that's not cutting it. And there's data there to prove, right, to prove that fact. And so I think from, a market and a message perspective, like there's immediate alignment. And so then the problem becomes, okay, well, how do you get the message out to the most amount of people? And so for us, an effective way that we did this pre-pandemic, obviously, Chris, how we met you was through conferences and getting out in front of people and being able to showcase what we can offer, right? Through things like the escape room at conferences, providing a fun opportunity for people to network and really experience our product line. We've had to transition that online as well. And so we actually are partnering with a lot of regional groups right now, regional conferences that went virtual, to now leverage our digital team-based training platform as part of their virtual event and virtual conference. And we found that to be very effective. And then, of course, with the traditional digital marketing efforts, right, with, putting out content and email marketing and LinkedIn and ads. But I think ultimately what's exciting and also challenging for cybersecurity as an industry in general, right? It's very noisy. There's a lot going on. It's about how do you break through the noise? And we found that if we can add value to start, right? If we like join in the community and talk about what are your challenges, hosting webinars, having family first things, what we did with breaking security awareness. If we can come in and kind of join you on your mission and just share what we're doing, that's resonating with people. And they're more often than not opening up their ears and wanting to learn more.
When I think of escape rooms, like just general, like my family and I, we loved them, right? When we were able to go out in public, we would do them just for fun. I always think of the adaptive problem solving that's needed in an escape room. Have you found any data that supports why that's such an important skill now today in corporations and maybe especially in InfoSec?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I think that, let me take a step back. So, I think that there within an escape room, there is something for everyone, right? And so, yes, like I think adaptive problem solving and being able to, be creative and think through strategy and do all of those things is absolutely like a critical part of growing in leadership and continuing to, and especially within InfoSec, where every day is different, right? Problems are always changing, and we need to be keeping pace with a very, fast moving, like an adjusting threat landscape. So specifically for InfoSec, but also within other career paths and career fields, adaptive problem solving is, essentially critical. But I think what's really unique about the escape room itself is that there's something for everyone. And so, you may be really excited about uncovering challenges or solving something or moving through, or maybe you're one of those people that just goes really deep with it. And they are going to sit and look at one challenge the entire time. And they're going to be the ones that are going in and out. And then they just do one thing in the escape room and they're fulfilled. Other people, they're just really social. and they learn through social interaction and they learn from each other. And so they may not even be the ones that are uncovering the clues or solving the problems, but they're watching everyone else do it and they get to learn from everyone else's experience. And so, no matter kind of like who you are or how you learn, Living Security has done and been very intentional about putting something in place to make sure that we can meet you where you're at. So in the escape room, obviously I shared some of the examples there, but with our online platform and even our content, it's a similar thing. So what we've learned is that people learn best through like metaphors and storytelling. And so as we with bite size, kind of short, sweet, to the point type, content delivery. And so we've taken a lot of this kind of learning science and learning methodology and then applied it to our programs. And so, yeah, I think, a big kind of held value is that, training cannot be one size fits all, and people are not one size fits all. And so you need to have a variety of ways to engage and reinforce material and information to your employee base. And starting with even understanding and identifying your culture and your people is really the first step at being able to put together an effective strategy, right, before you even go into tactics.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point that I love that you made is about how people learn at different paces and learn differently. I love that thing you said about how some just come in and just watch what other people do and others want to dive right in. We have that in our company, and we saw that when we did your escape room at the end of our year for our corporate event, and that was kind of an interesting thing now to see how that correlates to understanding how this may affect people in being secure employees. Have you found that to be the case? Like when you're doing really large corporations and they're putting maybe thousands of people through these rooms, that afterward, that those employees who aren't in InfoSec, so not those who are in our industry, that they've now had a heightened awareness to some of the potential problems and risks that exist out there in the world?
Absolutely. And yeah, that's why we do what we do, right? So ultimately, the fun is fantastic. Like we love to have fun and we want to add value and like add smiles, to everyone's day. But ultimately, like the reason that we're in business, the reason we have a solution is because we want to help to educate people so they can make better decisions that reduce risk for their company. Mm-hmm. And so, we've done comparative studies where we've looked at Living Security's training to, compared to other training vendors and training programs. And, some of the initial data points are showing things like a 45% reduction in phishing click rates from people that have gone through Living Security's program versus others. And so it's, it's science, right? It's the experiential learning, it's the immersive learning, it's, social learning. It's doing all these things that we already knew to be effective in like learning and development, and just applying it, like I mentioned earlier, to cybersecurity, training people like people, helping to empower them to make better decisions. All of this is netting us a greater return and a more secure workforce. And so, but I think what's really interesting about this question that, kind of love to transition over to talk a little bit about where we're going, is that a lot of companies today don't look like we all know why we're in information security, right? We want to reduce risk. We want to stop breaches. We want to, fight and win against the adversary. But I think what's happened, and it's really done a disservice to our space and like our market in particularly, is that we've gotten so caught up with what audit says we need to have and what compliance says we need to have, that programs' goals have unfortunately reverted to, how do I get to the checkbox and compliance as soon as possible, right? And so instead of keeping our objective as reducing risk, changing behavior, our objectives become compliance. And so then we've, fallen into this strategy to get to compliance as fast as possible. And when you have an objective, right, you're going to do whatever you can, take the quickest path to get there. And so what we're trying to do and what we're trying to help companies to do is, now replace the objective of compliance with behavior change and risk reduction. And then look at compliance as a milestone, we use OKRs in like at Living Security. So I'm like, okay, objective is change behavior, reduce risk, key result, compliance. Yes, we need to get there. We need to check the box. We need to make sure we're compliant, but that should not be the end goal. And so what I'm really excited about is this transition that we're seeing in our space, and what Living Security is tackling is this transition away from security awareness training and kind of that compliance mindset to what we're calling human risk management, which is all focused on behavior change and risk reduction and mapping cybersecurity goals with business objectives. And so, we can talk a little bit about like Unify and what we're coming to market with this year, but it's really the application of now applying like data science and tracking human behavior and human decisions to be able to give insights and set our program owners and our CISOs up to make better decisions based on data of how we're going to train, who we're going to train, what our intervention is going to look like, who is the group that is the highest risk because they're making the riskiest decisions and we're seeing them like really struggling with password security. Well, great. Let's move away from that one size fits all, that 45 minutes, one time a year compliance module to you need to train accounting, and specifically this group in accounting, on how to set secure passwords. And we want to watch that specific group to see if that training or that intervention led to more secure decisions, better password hygiene, using a password manager and setting more complex passwords. And with that, you can now then report on and provide data that says whether or not you're achieving your overall objective, which is, did you get that team or that group to change a behavior, to make a decision that's now in the best interest of the overall security for the organization or not, right? And be able to prove that there's actual like risk reducing activities occurring versus somebody just sitting through, a 30 or 45-minute training course.
I was about to jump up and start yelling, "Amen, Sister Ashley," because this is one of our biggest things here at SECom is like we actually refuse to do compliancy work as a adversarial simulation team because we don't like the idea of just being a checkbox. It's not what we do. We like the idea of to go home at night and say, "Hey, we actually did something today." And it was good, and it was good for the company, and it was good for people, and we actually helped. And that is that model. I could see that in your product. Like when we use it, I could see that it's not just about ticking a box that said I did phishing training this year, that it's about really making an effective change. When you started developing these escape rooms, this may be a loaded question, but like how much science went behind developing some of these ideas and concepts to teach people just that? So they had this adaptive problem solving built into those problems that were there. So they actually learned as opposed to just a compliance checkbox.
Yeah. So, I think the very nature of what we were doing was based on science, right? So we talked about a little bit of them, like we know that people learn better when, they're doing something that's hands-on. We know that people learn better when they're teaching others. And so it was really just taking what's already been in existence. If you look at like the learning hierarchy, right, of how people learn better and different learning styles, and then applying them to the rooms and then to the platform, leveraging things like gamification. We know that you can be, 16 times more effective when you're using, experiential learning and gamification than through like a traditional passive learning exercise. And so, everything that we've done, that we've built, has all been based on fact, been based on science, been based on things that we've seen proven. And then what we've done as a company is being able to come in after the fact and saying, okay, well, this was our hypothesis. We thought that if we applied this type of methodology to this problem set, that there would be change and there would be an effect. And then as we've matured as an organization and, had more of an opportunity to generate our own data, be able to come back after and say, okay, did we actually accomplish our goal? And I think, what I just shared around the, click rate reduction and some of what we're doing, like absolutely proved out the fact that our hypothesis was correct, right? Yeah. And so, yes, kind of, the whole like science methodology, scientific method, right, through the entire process of Living Security's growth.
I love that.
I was really interested when you were talking about applying different security to different departments within companies. I'm a huge advocate of tailoring training to specific individuals in the company. How do your products actually change with sophistication? So, in our products, we levelize our stuff. So, we hit the lowest hanging fruit first, but then as they graduate up, they get more and more sophisticated stuff. How do your products or your mindset of training apply to graduating through sophistication of attacks or sophistication of vulnerability?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Ryan. And we're seeing a lot of companies that are trying to do something very similar, and that's what we help them do, right? We're trying to move away from one size fits all. So that means breaking it by roles, by job titles, right? And then by sophistication level. And so a couple ways. And really the first place we started, because it was they have the biggest scale, was our online platform. And so we have a lot of different modules. We have over 100 modules now. We started off training on, the content was training on, obviously our traditional security awareness kind of hygiene principles for everyone. But then as we've continued to build more and more content out, we're doing role-based training. We're, targeting training at, executive and executive assistants. We're targeting training at the finance team. And really what you do is, you make it relevant to their kind of everyday lives, right? What are they seeing? Where are the risks that they're, really coming into contact with, the threats they're coming into contact with? And then thinking through like the context of their jobs as well, not in just the day-to-day, but, knowing that like executives and executive assistants, they are more likely to fall victim to like spear phishing, right? Because they're a high value target. And so making sure that we're like leveling up the training concepts within the material. What we've done recently is we've actually started moving into some more technical training. We're finding that there is kind of a gap at the awareness level within the market. And so, there's a lot of vendors that do, secure code training really well. That's not something that we specifically cover, but we built like OWASP into, the security awareness principles so that when you're giving even annual training or like frequent monthly modules to, software developers, that this is in the context of their lives and their jobs and what matters to them. I think one of the other challenges that we've seen and we've been very specific on is sometimes it's not always the what, but it's the why. Right. So our secure coders and our IT staff, they know what to do, but really what's missing is that like personal connection. And so we've done a really big lift on, we have like why modules, like why does this matter? Why is it important? And it's like connecting it to you personally. And we do the same thing with, our family first content and trying to make things personal. So especially in this post-pandemic world where work and life are so heavily integrated. And actually, Chris, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek into this year's Security Awareness Month theme, Work, Play, Live, Secure.
Love it.
We're super excited about it. And we're going to, we had a fantastic, CSAM experience with you last year, but
we did.
It's all about how do you show up and be secure, like in every aspect of your lives. Whether you're, on the corporate network, you're at work, or you're at home working from home, or you're banking on your phone with your personal banking, or you're helping your kids set up their social media accounts. Like we need to help to empower people to think about security just like they think about like physical safety, right? Like when you leave your house at night, you lock your doors, or when you're going to bed, you lock your doors. Like it needs to become kind of habitual and just a part of like your everyday. And so I think it's really, connecting with that why, with kind of the emotional aspect of, why you're doing things, or you're slowing down before you send an email, making sure you're sending it to the right recipient. It really is that's really kind of been the missing link, I think, in a lot of training programs right now.
Ashley, this has been phenomenal. I can't wait to see this year. Last year, like you said, our October was, I think, way more successful than either of us anticipated. That was not what I thought, at least. I mean, maybe you expected it, but I did not. So that was a lot of fun. I look forward to it again this year and seeing what other new things you come up with this year. We have a few questions for you that we like to ask at the end of our our podcasts. First of all, if people want to just know more, like let's say this is the first time they heard about you because they're living under a rock somewhere and they just, have just got back to Earth from their Mars trip, where do they go to find out more about Living Security and what you guys are doing?
So yeah, we have our website, it's livingsecurity.com, and there's a ton of so obviously everything we do as a company is there, but we also have a really robust resource page. We're actually giving away a month of our campaign in a box, which is very timely, relevant content paired with marketing material, paired with like Slack messages, things that you can kind of post and reach out to people, reach out to your team. So we have that. We have some of our family first content, tons of blogs. I mean, a lot of things that you can take and then immediately implement with your program. So check out livingsecurity.com, hit up our resources page. There's lots there that we like to give back to our industry.
Awesome. If you had to pick some colleagues in the industry that you respect the most, who would you name?
Yes, love this question. So I'll say a few. So Venus Goodwine, who is the Chief Information Security Officer at USDA, love her. She obviously has a tremendous background, but she's also a big proponent for diversity and inclusion and getting, more women in technology and more women in cyber. So love that mission. We try to do the same here, and there's a lot of work to do, but one thing I'm really proud of is we actually 50% of our staff is 50% of our employees are women. So, we're doing our part. Awesome. And we'll continue to do that. Chris Nickerson, we just brought him on to our advisory council with Living Security, obviously, founder of B-Sides, and now he has his own consulting firm. But, I think it's fantastic the way that he and others have, and yourself included Chris, have moved from the practitioner over into the vendor space and didn't sell out right in the process, that you've maintained your values and why you got into this space in general, right? That we want to help people, that we're fighting the fight, that we're mission driven. And so I really, really think that is, I really respect that about, Chris and Chris as well. And then, our customers, I can never leave them out. But our practitioners and our program owners that are really on the front line, I mentioned earlier, you cannot get into this space and be a security awareness program owner unless you have this deep belief in empowering people and making change. And I love working with our customers every day. I love spending time with them, learning about what their challenges are, and learning about their wins, because this market is just full of really incredible mission-driven people that really want to make an impact. So those are a couple of my favorites.
Awesome. I know Chris really well, and I agree with everything you said about him. I've never heard or met Venus, but I'd love to meet her. She sounds like a fascinating person to have as a role model. So thank you for that. Are there any action steps that you think a corporation can start thinking of right now based on some of the things we spoke about today?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give kind of one high level and then a couple kind of easy to implement. So, really, just stopping and revisiting your training strategy. Is the objective to get compliant as fast as possible or to change behavior and reduce risk? And if you can just start answering that question, then there's some kind of tactics that you can take, right, to move in a different direction. So, how do you know? Look at how often are you training people? Who are you training? Is it everyone? Is it specific roles and groups or high risk, targets? And then what are you training them on? And then, with what, right? What's the delivery method? So are you focused on empowering people to really own their own security or demanding compliance? Traditionally, if you have a one-time, a year, 45-minute annual training that everyone gets, it's a good indicator that you're probably focused on compliance. But there's really opportunities to start doing things now to break that up. So moving over to micro learning, right? These short, sweet, to the point. It could be 5 minutes a month, right? Once a month for the year. And we're dropping kind of bite-sized, easy to digest information to people in a pace that they can consume and that's actionable. moving to speak from the what to the why. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. And then, adding an element of engagement, right? You always have to start somewhere. So, maybe you are, like more on the compliance side and you're looking to move over. Okay, great. Well, we need to start like breaking down the culture. And so we found a lot of companies that start working with living security, they start with like one group. And this could be, we're going to target our phishing remediation training and our repeat clickers. And instead of being punitive, right, we're going to move from the stick to the carrot. And so we find a lot of companies, implementing Cyber Escape Online for phishing remediation training. And so, people go through, they're clicking, they think they're going to come show up and they're going to have, another person on the side of the screen. This is bad, bad, bad. But they come through this like really highly engaging, team training experience where they learn about phishing, but do it in an environment that breaks down barriers, right? Same thing can be done with new hire training. And I think what a better place to start than the minute somebody walks in the door, right? They're going through new hire orientation. They're learning about all other parts of your business. They're probably looking at a lot of HR compliance stuff. Well, let's get security out there in front. Let them know, hey, this is really important and we're going to invest in you. We're going to put you through an escape room online or, a really fun kind of gamified program through the platform. So all of these are like, I'm not going to say like, they don't require any time by any means, but they're quick, kind of easy to implement, activities that you can build into a process or a workflow that's already there. You're probably already doing something for phishing remediation. You're probably already doing something for your new hires. And then I think the next one that, maybe is a little bit larger of a lift, but like what data are you collecting to measure success, right? We come back to those objectives and those key results. Do you have phishing data? That's great. You have click rate. Okay. Are you looking at report rate? But do you have any more inputs, any other inputs, right? Are you integrated into the rest of the security team, the security operations center? Are you seeing what incidents are occurring? Who's doing what's causing the most risk? How people are working online? Are people, downloading or visiting malicious websites? There's a lot of different like behavioral data points that we can start collecting. And obviously, you can partner with, Living Security to help do that. But a lot of that may already be there. And there may be some quick inputs that you could get from partnering across your security team and just becoming more strategic and integrated with, the rest of the organization.
Those are awesome. We always love when we get actionable tips, because those things are what people really love. That's something I can go and take and do.
New hire stuff. Get someone in an escape room on their first day when they're already excited about a new job. I think that's a great insert into that. It's a great idea.
That is a great idea, man. We should think about that.
Yeah,
that's a pretty cool idea. Ashley, one of the things we ask everybody for 10 years of doing this podcast is about books. We have a huge list of books that have been recommended through all the podcasts. Do you have any of your favorite books that you've liked over the years? Yeah,
so I'm reading now The CEO Tightrope, and that's all about finding your balance as a CEO. It's by Joel Trammell. I'm about 50% through, so we'll see if I can add it to my favorites list, but so far so good. And then I love The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. So those I haven't heard of either of those, so that's great. I love when we get book recommendations I haven't heard of, because that just gives me more to read, so I love that. That's great. Ashley, I cannot thank you enough. This has been an awesome podcast. It was great to hear your origin story. I mean, I feel like I've known you for a few years, but never heard any of that. So that's kind of cool. And congratulations on all of the awesome growth and additions this year. I can't wait to see what 2021 holds for you. So thank you for being a part of the show. Chris, thank you so much for having me. Ryan, it was great to meet you.
It was great to meet you. Thanks for coming.
So Ryan, if they want to follow you on Twitter, where do they go?
It's at Joe Montmania.
See, I can never get it right. I'm always going to say it wrong. Yeah. And I'm Human Hacker, and Ashley is @AshleyRose_ATX if you want to follow her there, or you can go to Living Security's Twitter at living_security, and all of that will be on their website. And in our show notes too, a link to Ashley's LinkedIn account and Twitter account and all those things, so you can find out some more information. Feel free to check us out on social-engineer.org, social-engineer.com. And of course, please check out innocentlivesfoundation.org. Next month, what is happening? So on the Security Awareness Series, we are joined by Jason Frank from Spectre Ops. That's going to be a really fun conversation. So we look forward to seeing and hearing you all next month. See you.
Later.